Hello everyone. My name is Gabriella. I'm UX designer from São Paulo, Brazil, one of the organizers of this year's Talk UX and a volunteer at Ladies.UX. For accessibility, I'm going to describe myself. So my skin is white, I have bluish eyes, my hair is a dark shade of blonde and straight and medium length. I'm wearing a yellow sweatshirt and I have a gray headphone. In my background, there is 2 half moons, one on each side, hanging in a purple wall. The lecture now is how to create a design-integrated business to build digital products to win. Limina new research reveals why and how companies need to adopt a shared human-centered design culture, organizational operating structure, and metrics to build digital products to win. This presentation is based on key findings from our research. We've begun with this premise that design and UX need to move out from behind the scenes or living on an island within companies and align themselves with the core business. So now from Colorado, United States, Maria Taylor, the co-founder of Limina. Her mission is to make digital products and services usable, engaging, and delightful through the application of robust human-centered design-driven techniques. Collectively, Limina's mission is to enable, expand, and enhance human potential by simplifying complex computer interaction and design from the usable system. So now, welcome, Maria.
Thank you so much, Gabriella. I know I gave you a mouthful of things to talk through there, so I appreciate it. Just to describe myself a bit, I have brown skin and I have brown hair that is highlighted. It's curly. I have brown eyes and I'm wearing a black shirt with a gray sweater. I have a light yellow wall behind me with 2 paintings that my husband did of some of my favorite spots back home in Hawaii on the island that I'm from.
That's so great. Thank you so much for being here today with us.
Thank you. Yes.
So,
all right.
I'm going to add your presentation here, and I'm going to leave you guys here. See you soon.
Perfect. Well, thank you again, Gabriella, for the introduction. I am really excited and grateful to be part of the Talk UX conference and to have a chance to present alongside the amazing group of women that the organizers have brought together this week. Since Gabriella did such a great job of describing the talk that I'm about to give, I think we should just dive right in. This presentation is broken out into 3 main sections. First, I'm going to provide you with some background on the study we conducted and look at some key findings. Then we're going to take a look at some barriers and best practices related to design integration. And finally, we'll talk about some tactical next steps. We should also have time to close things out with Q&A. So why study design and its place in the business? Really for 2 reasons. I've been in this profession for roughly 20 years, and even after all that time, there still seems to be a lot of confusion over the definition of design or user experience, confusion both within our profession and externally. Moreover, there's confusion about how design fits into the business context. I believe the concept of design in UX needs to shift from being positioned as a service or a group or a role within an organization to being seen as a multifunctional process that companies need to adopt and operationalize to win. With that in mind, our study had 2 parallel goals: to increase awareness of the issue of maturity in the design and UX industry, and to identify best practices that can help accelerate adoption of design and UX as integral to business success. Against these goals, we had 2 discrete groups we were targeting: business leaders who need to understand that fully integrating design into the enterprise will enable them to compete more effectively and keep pace with customer expectations. And designers and UX practitioners, such as yourselves, who already understand the value of good design, but who need to manage up to business leaders, working with them to create design-integrated businesses. We conducted 111 online surveys of companies across a wide range of industries, including financial services, fintech, IT and computer software, as well as others. All respondents were decision makers and influencers in design. The majority of participants were at the EVP or C-suite level. Respondents represented a wide range of functions, including user and customer research, software engineering, and program management. We looked at companies of different revenue sizes as well, ranging from those making 100 million up to 500 or 5 billion or more. Roughly 40% of our participants were making 1 billion or more. In addition to the survey participants, we conducted 10 phone interviews with leading proponents of human-centered design to validate and support our quantitative research. We spoke with design and UX leaders from ADP, Atlassian, Capital One, Geico, Google, MicroStrategies, Slalom Consulting, the Team W, and a couple of other leading brands that asked not to be named. What emerged for us was the discovery of what we're calling design-integrated businesses. 14% of those we spoke with demonstrated this integration, and another 15% were moving in that direction. Based on our findings, we were able to determine 7 core traits that defined what the design-integrated businesses were doing that others were not. We're going to talk more about what design-integrated means in the coming slides. But first, let's take a little step back. Investigating design maturity and design integration isn't new. Here are 3 studies in this area that are worth calling attention to. I'm starting at the bottom of the list here. So the first one from the Danish Design Center in 2001. They noted that design-integrated businesses increased their financial performance by 20% compared to businesses where design integration remained static or declining. The Design Management Institute published a study in 2016, noting that these same kind of businesses outperformed the S&P 500 by 228%. And more recently, McKinsey published a study on the business value of design in 2018, noting that design-integrated businesses outperformed industry benchmark growth by a margin of 2 to 1. Given how much study has gone into confirming the importance of design maturity and design integration, why is there still a delta between those that are performing well and those that are lagging behind? Well, clearly more needs to be done to support companies knowing how to move down that path towards maturity. So our study is complementary to these studies as we set out to define the best practices for creating design-integrated businesses with an emphasis on how. To get clarity on the how, we designed our research study to answer these 5 core questions. How does human-centered design lead to becoming a design-integrated business? What are the characteristics of design-integrated businesses? How are companies creating reusable assets and repeatable processes? Are metrics used to demonstrate the business value of design? And if so, which ones? What design and UX investments are companies making? So what do design-integrated businesses know that others don't? Our study found that they have strong and equal alignment of business, design, and technical functions, which leads to a measurable, repeatable, standardized, and sustainable way for all employees to work together, building products that are simple and intuitive to use. It's the strong and equal alignment among cross-functional team that creates high efficiency, working together towards the common goal of creating higher quality user-centered products, which leads to cost savings and increased revenue. You can see with the little arrows, the green arrows we have in each of the areas, that this strong and equal alignment leads to increased efficiency and quality, which leads to higher quality products, cost savings, and increased revenue. What traits define a design-integrated business? Design-integrated businesses are more than just a collection of cross-functional teams. The linchpin is human-centered design culture, supported by the board, the CEO, and all of the C-suite, that incorporates a shared vision, values, purpose, and language. It operates with cross-functional teams that use shared methods, systems, and budgets. And most importantly, its leaders and teams agree on the business metrics that matter. They track those metrics and see clearly how design impacts them. When the organization shares the same goals, everyone works together to determine the measurements that matter most in improving the outcomes that make a difference to the business, and then they can take action on improving results based on those metrics. It's not a big surprise that design-integrated businesses are pretty disparate in nature, so how they achieve integration will be unique. but our research had discovered that regardless of size or industry or geography, they did have some commonalities. C-suite executive support plays a major role in making this shift. Steve Jobs of Apple, Elon Musk of Tesla, and Sundar Pichai of Google. These three leaders have all publicly called on their organizations to fully embrace design and focus on user experience. And they've structured their organizations to do so and are reaping the benefits of those decisions. We don't have to look far to see other companies also putting a focus on the user at the center of their businesses. Companies like Netflix and Uber, Airbnb and Amazon, they've all set the bar high and keep setting it higher. Yet they're all still dealing with unexpected competition, rising customer expectations, and technology constantly evolving. These companies continue to rise to the challenge, not only because they're focused on understanding their users' needs, but because they have a strong alignment between the different parts of their organization, like we looked at on the previous slide. Here's a bit of a closer look at the difference between the design-integrated firms and those that are close on their heels, the design-conscious. As I mentioned on the earlier slide, in terms of the percentage of survey respondents, the design-integrated was 14% of the total study. The design-conscious was slightly larger at 15%. If you look at the size of revenue, you can see that while design-integrated business exists at all size, our research found a larger portion of firms existed below the $100 million mark in revenue. Smaller firms are characteristically more agile. Those smaller firms also tend to be younger and earlier in the process of establishing culture and processes, and therefore more flexible in seeing those changes. So the design conscious were larger and had a slower time adapting, whereas the design integrated were slightly smaller and had an easier time. In terms of the budget allocation to making improvements in design, you can see that the design integrated firms were spending almost twice as much as the design conscious. And in terms of where UX resources resided in the organization, you can see that design integrated almost, again, twice as much had the design resources brought together in some kind of centralized capacity. In terms of where design leadership reported into, this is one of the starkest differences between the two groups. So the design integrated firms had their leadership reporting directly into the C-suite 75% of the time, whereas the design conscious was far less at 12%. So according to the research, 86%, or everyone except that top 14 that made the design integrated, were behind the curve. What does alignment look like in these organizations? Well, they have a strong alignment between business operations, which includes product management, marketing and sales, and technology, which includes engineering and software development. That alignment leads to increased efficiency and increased quality in the same way that you saw for the previous firms. The alignment between design and tech is growing with the adoption of design systems, design ops, DevOps, best practices, and continuous integration. Improvements are being made in this alignment, resulting in definite gains in equality and efficiency, but not at the same level as what you see between business and tech. Finally, what's most missing is a lack of clear alignment between design and business. So what's the problem? Well, becoming a design integrated business is hard, and doing it successfully means taking entrenched challenges head on. One interesting issue we saw is that while designers are starting to get a seat at the table, slightly more than half of the organizations we talked to said their designers are still struggling to get a voice at the table once they're there. All of the key traits mentioned earlier and the best practices that we're about to share should help with building and maintaining your voice at the table. The rest of the deficits or barriers to success align pretty well with the 7 traits that design integrated companies possess, with a few additional hurdles called out, such as disparate design technologies and effort required to maintain reusable artifacts. Next, we're going to take a look at the best practices related to design integrated companies. With what we learned from the survey and interviews, as I mentioned, we've put together 6 best practices that can help create a design integrated business. Over the next 12 slides, we're going to dive into more detail on each of these with 2 slides per practice. I'll first tee up each issue and then I'll follow up with best practices. So first and foremost, embed a human-centered design culture in every corner of the company, starting with the C-suite. Our study shows that many companies have not yet built a human-centered design culture and do not have C-suite executive backing to support that culture. So nearly half, or 49%, of the most senior UX design leaders surveyed reported into a C-suite executive. The rest, 51%, reported into lower levels of management. As I mentioned earlier, C-suite executive support is vital to the success of establishing a human-centered design culture and to having the entire organization understand the value of human-centered design as one of the company's overall objectives. How can firms build a human-centered design culture? Building a human-centered design culture is not easy and change is hard, but when you get it right, it can dramatically accelerate organizational success. Most of you probably work at companies that already have documented vision, values, and purpose. In this case, it would mean connecting the work that the design team is doing to supporting the core values of the company and making sure that how the design work is presented ties into supporting those pieces of work. Second, develop a change management program focused on shifting the definition of design from that of a siloed function to being a shared process. And then bring together and foster collaboration among diverse participants to help build shared understanding of the needs of your users and how you can best meet those needs together. Lastly, strive to operate with design, business, and technology playing equal and integral roles from the inception of crafting strategies for new products or enhancing existing products. Best practice number 2, communicate for the common good. Communication is key when building a design culture for 2 main reasons. First, it provides common language so that everyone understands the meaning of the terminology being used. Second, it educates the organization about the function of design in producing products that provide a superior user experience. What are some steps to help you get started? Well, to build that common language, you can start in a couple of different ways. You could start by identifying problematic language, such as terms with multiple meanings or vague meanings that can be easily misinterpreted. Examples of some of the terms that we've struggled with in our organization are words like component or widget or module. These terms have meant something different in a design context from what they mean to a developer. And we have all had to adjust and adopt terms that hold the same meaning to everyone on the team. You can also identify which miscommunications tend to lead to wasted time or put projects at risk, and start with clarifying any language that causes issues. Then put together a multidisciplinary task force to create a glossary of terms. Once you have that glossary, run some internal marketing campaigns to disseminate the info across the organization. Create a design communication plan, and don't forget to get your C-suite involved in adopting the terms so that everyone in the organization can start talking the talk. Best practice 3, integrate design resources across the business function. Our study validates what design practitioners already know. Organizations have a difficult time finding the optimal place for design to reside. Because of this, most organizations are not able to fully realize the power and business benefit the design function brings. So when we asked how UX and user-centered design is organized within companies, survey results were divided into 3 equal thirds. About a third of companies had UX and design resources residing in their own functional area. Another third said resources existed primarily in its own functional area, but certain resources also resided in other areas of the organization. The final model was that resources were integrated into various functions across the organization, but without any centralized support. This table to the right shows the areas where UX practitioners often resided. Product management was the most common home for UX with our participants, followed by those that were in a designated design group or UX group. There really is no true north for organizations that are defining where to put the design team, but there are really 3 main models for success that we see. The first is the one we're calling design centralized, and this starts by having a design team in its own department. This is an excellent way of building up standards and best practices and creating an operational center of excellence. The second is design distributed, where design resources sit within delivery teams throughout the organization. This model is really great for building and supporting multidisciplinary teams. The third model is the one we're calling design partnership, and this marries the best of both worlds from the other 2 models, allowing the design team to build up unified standards of practice and provide organization-wide design support. It's often true that firms progress from a centralized or a distributed model to the design partnership model as they seek to mature. If you're looking for further ideas and readings in this area, I recommend the O'Reilly book, Org Design for Design Orgs. They use slightly different terminology than we do, but the underlying concepts are the same. If you're interested and want to find that book, just reach out to me after the session or during the Q&A, and I can share a link to the book with you. Best practice 4, capture specific metrics and manage to them. Proving return on investment is foundational to illustrating how important design integration is, especially to leadership. However, to do so, leaders and teams need to agree on the business metrics that matter, track those metrics, and illustrate how design integration impacts them. According to our research, 87% of companies we spoke with say that metrics and business impact are typically part of their initial design conversations. With those directives and benchmarks set, having design professionals integrated early in the strategy and definition process means that problems with user experience and project viability can be addressed from the outset. How do you start defining the right metrics? Well, the metrics that matter depend on the business. So it's really up to your organization to define what metrics are meaningful. For example, one of our study participants, user experience consultant Susan Weinstein, shared an example with us of a nonprofit lender that she'd worked with that was losing 50 donors a day as a result of poor user experience. If each donor gave an average of $50, that's a loss of $2,500 per day and $912,000 per year. A $100,000 investment in fixing those user experience problems would be paid off in returns in roughly 40 days. So once you've determined what metrics are important, as I mentioned before, track the results and quantify the ROI through improvements. Best practice 5, create and reuse artifacts and repeatable processes. Our research revealed that less than a third of companies approach design standards with an active reference standards management system. Moreover, over half of our participants, or 49%, start most of their UX work from scratch each time. Reinventing the wheel at the start of every design initiative is a waste of time, effort, and money. The root cause of this problem is the lack of reusable artifacts and repeatable processes. A great way to get started is to define each step in your company's software development lifecycle, or SDL, and the necessary artifacts which must be produced at that step. Then capture your touch points, which roles on the team the artifact is of use to, and how and when they should use it, in language that's meaningful to them. From there, you can create design libraries, reusable templates, and document best practices and standards. You can also create a knowledge base to store the reusable artifacts and guidance, and institute governance policies to make sure the repositories and tools are used. Please keep in mind that we're not suggesting that you, as the individuals participating in this conference session, could be or should be able to accomplish all of these best practices within your organizations on your own. You definitely need to get buy-in and support from others to achieve these goals, as they're quite large. Our last best practice is around how investments are made to support design, both in terms of where investments are made at various stages of the SDL and whether investments were made to improve quality or efficiency or both. We looked at where companies were investing in the SDL and in which aspects and for what reasons. In terms of investment priority, the research found that the top priority investments were in artifacts and processes and systems focused on quality purposes. In terms of SDL stage, deployment is the top area of investment, particularly in systems for areas such as project management and version control. In requirements analysis, there are heavy investments in processes, particularly in areas such as requirements management and level of effort estimation. As you can see from the graph, design lags behind the others in terms of investment focus. This slide looks at how participants ranked priority in artifacts, processes, and systems across the SDL. We're showing you this so that you can take a look at how priorities shifted from the pool of folks that we spoke with overall to what it looked like for the design conscious and the design integrated. Across the board, design phase support holds 3 out of the top 5 spots. Tracking these, that's with the green dot. Tracking these across design conscious and design integrated firms, you can see that they migrate to becoming the top 3 areas. So our best practice here is really just to invest in the artifacts your team needs to collaborate, then the processes they support them, and then the systems needed to bring everything together. So where do we go from here? I know this sounds like a lot of work. The challenge of driving design integration throughout an organization can definitely seem daunting, but the pathway is made of small and intentional steps, right? So here are 3 tactical next steps that you can take that will help lead you towards more meaningful short-term change and then also incorporate some ideas for longer-term strategic transformation. The 3 tactical steps are: identify a set of metrics cross-functional teams can manage and share. Identify opportunities to establish reusable artifacts and repeatable processes in design operations. And identify common language and promote a culture of human-centered design. Again, this is going to take creating cross-functional teams and bringing together a number of different resources to work on these tactical underpinnings. And while you're doing that, you can also be thinking longer term about strategic transformation, thinking about investing in embedding human-centered design more broadly across the company, how to integrate design resources into various functions of the business, and how to get investment focused around artifacts and then process and then tools. So I moved through everything pretty quickly today. I know we made it far before the half-hour mark, but I'm ready to open it up for questions. If anyone wants to talk about comments or ideas, I'm definitely looking forward to hearing what's on your mind. Let me see how to use the chat feature.
Time for questions. We'll leave a time because there is a delay in YouTube.
Well, that's great. Thank you, Jennifer. I'm glad that you're enjoying it. It's always good to get feedback.
Yeah.
I did move through things pretty quickly, so if there's anything that you'd like me to go back over and talk about in more detail, or if there's any best practice area that really stands out as something that you'd like to focus on and you'd like to talk about it a little more, I'd be happy to do that too.
No questions?
Well, you can always reach out to me after as well. I put my handles and ways to reach out to me on the cover page.
So guys, we are finishing today. Thank you so much, Maria, for sharing all your knowledge with us. And thank you everyone for watching us. Stay tuned because the next lecture will be in 1 hour. Oh, there is one. I will not close it.
Yes. Any tips for young practitioners? Yes. I think one of the most important tips that I can give you, and it's something that I've definitely done myself, is to find a mentor. Find someone. It doesn't have to be someone at your company. It doesn't have to be someone in your same country. It just has to be someone that you believe has information and knowledge that you don't. And ask them to mentor you and set up a series of discussion points or a way for them to help guide you through different steps in your career. I've done this for other folks. You could use your alumni network from where you went to school, or use professional groups in your area. You could use LinkedIn. There are a number of different ways that you could try to informally find a mentor and then have them really coach you through things that you want to learn.
And for the mentors, do you have any tips or anything you want to say to them?
Pardon?
For the mentors, do you, the ones who make the mentorship, you want to say something for them?
Well, I definitely think it's useful for you to become a mentor. If you have skills and you are in an organization that has already moved somewhere down this path towards maturity, I mean, I think it's really important for all of us in this profession to help make sure that we're moving at the same pace and that we can all reach some levels of maturity together across our organization. So I definitely would advocate for becoming a mentor and helping to make sure that you're finding other folks that can learn from you and that you share that knowledge. I think very often mentors think that they never know enough, that there's always more that they could be learning themselves. So they sometimes hesitate to provide knowledge out that they already have. So if you've been doing this for a long time, just remember there's absolutely things that you know that others don't, and you absolutely have value to bring and information to share. And sometimes, people can read as many blog posts or as many articles or as many books as they can to get this stuff. But there's a lot of nuance and a lot of detail that you can really only get from having that interpersonal relationship and having the opportunity to just sit down and talk specifically about the challenges that are directly in front of someone and guide them through that. So I think, yeah, becoming a mentor is great for the mentor and the mentee.
That's great. I think, yeah, that's now we are going. So thank you again, everyone, and Maria, especially Maria. Stay tuned because the next lecture will be in 1 hour from San Francisco, United States, Claudia Love, with the lecture Building Design Teams. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye-bye.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it.